It will be presented by Martha Sullivan and Stephanie Jennings of Women Occupy San Diego. I want to thank Ms. Sullivan, for coordinating this presentation.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Jennings. I'm a member of this coalition and of Women Occupy, and I want to thank the committee for letting us bring this issue forward to you this evening. As we are living in this age of Ferguson and Baltimore and other cities around the country that are in distress, we believe that there's a crisis of confidence of our institutions. And that crisis of confidence is providing us actually with an opportunity. This opportunity will give us a chance to provide consistency, transparency, and trust to the people of San Diego. And we're not actually reinventing the wheel. What we're going to present is something that is actually already in practice in the county of San Diego. So we believe it's time for a change. Over 25 years ago, the city voters passed 2 ballot measures to establish a CRB. The measure that lacked independent investigators and subpoena power received 800 more votes and was therefore implemented. Years later, assaults and misconduct by the SDPD are still happening, and taxpayers have paid over $7 million in claims in the past 3 years. Another reason it's time for change is that the San Diego Police Department has a problem of holding personnel accountable. The U.S. Department of Justice filed a report this year stating that a failure to hold personnel accountable has allowed misconduct to occur and go undetected for some time. The U.S. Department of Justice recognizes a need for greater accountability, and we can provide a system change that can meet that need. Also, in 2012, there was a grand jury that noted that the CRB was allowing internal affairs to attend closed sessions. As they stated, this could have an effect on the board's independent decisions. The 2012 grand jury also found problems in the atmosphere and the leadership within the CRB, which was contributing to a myriad of problems, including a high turnover rate. In the last 2 months alone, federal courts ruled against 3 San Diego police officers cleared by SDPD Internal Affairs and the CRB. The U.S. District Judge noted inconsistencies in statements by SDPD Officer John McCarthy. And a federal jury found that San Diego police officers falsely arrested Javier Cota without probable cause in violation of the 4th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Last week, San Diego County District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis cleared 22 police shootings since 2013. 2/3 of these shootings were by SDPD officers. 18 police shootings in 2013 have yet to be reviewed by the DA. And we believe that 40 shootings in 2.5 years is unacceptable. And an independent agency should be examining why so many officers are resorting to deadly force. Just in the last 2 months alone, federal courts ruled, my mistake. Okay, so now I'll pass it over to Martha Sullivan, my partner, and she will talk about the ways that we can build consistency and trust.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to make this presentation. We just want to bring up for comparison and what our proposal is based on the County Law Enforcement Review Board that was established by the voters in 1990. This board has independent investigators, it has subpoena power. The county board jurisdiction includes law enforcement for the unincorporated county, 9 contract cities, the jails, courts, and probation services, and each of the supervisors appoints 2 board members plus 1 board member rotates among the 5 supervisors. The contrast between these 2 boards, the county and the city board, you can see in this summary right here. The most significant is that the county board is fully independent from law enforcement on the county side. They keep the complaints they receive in-house. They track those complaints. They independently investigate the complaints. They have subpoena power, and they report on the progress and the results of their investigation to the public, much more substantially than the CRB does. Also, in terms of just the budget, the county board publishes an annual report. Each annual report includes the budget and expenditures. The county board has 4 staff, including 2 investigators, has 11 volunteer board members, and the current annual budget is $612,000. We aren't able to find this out for the city. It's not in the most recent public annual report of 2009. It wasn't in previous annual reports. When we inquired of the city's financial management offices, we were unable to find out what the budget for this CRB is, what the expenditures are. We will note that there's 1.3 staff. We only recently restored this year 1 full-time executive director. And then the San Diego Police Department expends resources doing the investigations and administering the process. And there are 23 volunteer board members. We have a coalition represented here in this organized presentation that reflects a broad range of San Diego civil liberties and civic organizations, including the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties, Activist San Diego, the Black Student Justice Coalition, Black and Brown Lives Matter Coalition, the National Lawyers Guild, San Diego Coalition for Peace and Justice, San Diego OWLS, the San Diego Socialist Campaign, United Against Police Terror, Women Occupy San Diego, and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We really believe that this is the time, in light of everything that's happened just in 2015 in the first half. It's time to rebuild trust of the public in the San Diego Police Department and in the city that oversees the police department. We are calling upon the City Council via charter revision if necessary to adopt the model of the San Diego County Law Enforcement Review Board that was adopted 25 years ago by the voters. We basically have 2 models for civilian police review that have operated side by side for 25 years. And it seems clear to us that 25 years is long enough for the city's model to be tested. With all the issues that we have before us, particularly in the last few years with the city police, it's really incumbent upon us to let's transition over to the county board's model with independent investigators, with subpoena power, independent of law enforcement, that can provide the accountability and the transparency and the consistency, throughout much of San Diego County, so that there's a similar law enforcement review process available to the residents of San Diego County for much of the law enforcement. And just to summarize again, we're calling for independent investigators and subpoena power as provided to the County Law Enforcement Review Board by Proposition A in 1990. We're calling for intake, tracking, and review of all complaints filed is done by the CRB and not just handed off to the police department and where it disappears. We would like to change the name from Citizens Review Board to Community Review Board to more, accurately reflect the fact that all residents of San Diego are subject to the San Diego Police Department, not just, quote, citizens. And finally, we recommend that the City Review Board membership be similar to the membership of the county board, which is that they are appointed by the elected representatives from each of the districts in the jurisdiction. So in the case of the city, we're proposing that each of the 9 council members appoint 2 members and that the mayor appoint 1, so that we would have 19 board members as contrasted to the 23 now that are all appointed by a single elected official, the mayor. We want to wrap up to emphasize this quote from the U.S. Department of Justice's review of the San Diego Police Department earlier this year, a review that was requested by the chief of police. And I'm going to read the quote, because I think it's a powerful quote that supports what it is we're proposing, the good government proposal we're making. The recovery process for this SDPD will take time and an ongoing commitment on the part of the city government, the police department, and the community. For SDPD, this commitment must involve leaders at all levels within the department to rebuild trust and partnerships with community members. Strong efforts must be taken to ensure transparency and responsiveness to community concerns and complaints. We believe that this very reasonable good government proposal to use the same model that's been demonstrated to be effective by the County of San Diego for 25 years should be adopted by the City of San Diego. And we ask for your support in accomplishing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does that conclude your organized presentation?
Does that conclude your presentation, ma'am? Does that conclude your presentation?
Thank you. Let me just note then that Martha Sullivan and Stephanie Jennings had time seated by Jeremiah Ivy, Anita Messina Turner, Rita Pinkerton, Bo Elder, Ann Barron, Catherine Mendonça, Kate Yavins Little, Emily Bonner, Emily Seraphy Cox, Kimberly McGinley, Patricia Gracian, Michael Brackney, and Virginia Franco for their 15-minute organized presentation. There are additional individual public speakers on this item, beginning with John Falke, followed by Brian Pollard, followed by Margaret Kuchnia. Please come forward when your name is called. There are seats in the front for speakers. John Falke, followed by Brian Pollard.
Madam Chairman Leitner and members of the Charter Review Committee, I'm really pleased that you're here today considering this very, very important item. Most of us have been watching this take place all over the country, just as it has here in San Diego. The instances of complaints that have gone to the Citizens Review Committee stacked up and delayed and so forth. And of course, serious disconcertment on the part of a lot of us. And complaints such as these need to be taken care of much more effectively. We're also not pleased with the lack of transparency and clout on the part of the present Citizens Review Board. I've had some very, very positive experiences just in the last year with the police department here locally. Happen to live in the Point Loma area that they cover a little bit more easily than they do in the southeast, where there's a lot of difficulties. But there are always rogue elements in the department as large as ours, and they're the ones responsible for a lot of the difficulties we face. The $7 million paid out in claims just in the last 3 years are evidence of this. So these are the things that need to be taken care of a lot better. And Plan of Action, a Changing Era that I represent here, is definitely in support of the coalition and the presentation you just heard from Martha Sullivan. It wants to change the name of the Board of the Community Review Board, have its members elected by the various council members and the mayor. This seems very reasonable to me. Giving it effective subpoena investigative powers makes it an effective organization, which it is not right now. And having the complaints go to it in first instance, rather than the San Diego Police Department Internal Affairs, seems to make it more independent. This is what a lot of us want, and I hope you pay serious attention to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brian Pollard, followed by Margaret Kuchnia, followed by Cecile Vallard, and Brian Pollard has time seated by Leslie Dudley for a total of 4 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having these evening meetings. It makes it much easier for all of us to get out and come and address some of the issues that we need to. I live in southeastern San Diego, and I represent the Urban Collaborative Project, which is a number of residents that just trying to make southeastern a little better. What we're requesting in support of Ms. Sullivan is a true fair system that represents effective checks and balances. Right now, there are no checks and balances in the process. Independent investigators and subpoena power, as it is in the county, would go a long way in providing these badly needed checks and balances to a system that appears to be one-sided. We need to be more effective. We need to have more effective system that, bottom line, is it weeds out the bad cops. And it also provides effective policing of the police. We need better transparency, and quite frankly, we need to put some fear of God into those bad rogue cops that taints the entire police department. My brother-in-law used to be the assistant police chief here in San Diego, and I have a number of first responders in my family. So in southeastern San Diego, the police are there to support us. There are some bad cops out there that need to be weeded out. All over the country, police misconduct on the TV, and we see it. And my sense is these examples that are on TV have been occurring all of the time. The issue is that in today's technology, people can't get away with it because it's in real time. And all of us are carrying cell phones, and when we see things, we plug them in. So today's technology, I think, is one of the biggest tools that we have that provide those checks and balances. These changes will put teeth in the process. Bad officers need to know that the free ride is over. I live in southeastern San Diego, and the fear I have is one day, one bad cop can instantly convert southeast San Diego to a Ferguson or to a Baltimore. No one wants that. A fair and more transparent system will ensure more equity, and what we badly need are better checks and balances in a system that is badly outdated and appears to be unfair. Not making this change will send a wrong message to our youth and to our entire city. It will continue to support the apparent denial we have that there is something wrong. So I support the coalition's effort of providing some more transparency, getting subpoena power, and hope you agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margaret Kuchnia, followed by Cecile Vallard, followed by Sean Dudley.
Before you start, ma'am, one of the things I've requested in the past is if you agree with the speaker, would you please wave your hands, and that way we don't not hear someone speaking while they're up here? Please.
Okay, thank you very much for hearing my comments. I'm here to talk about our shared humanity. This is a difficult question, and we're talking about a group, the police, that are trying to oversee themselves. Now, nobody likes to have oversight. I mean, ever since we were children, who wants someone looking over your shoulder telling you what to do? However, it has to happen, and it's difficult to oversee yourself. So I'm arguing in favor of independent oversight. I'm a nurse, and I know what it's like to know that there's a bad nurse on the floor and feel that tinge of how do I turn that person in without tainting my profession? Well, it
taints my profession more if I don't. What I'm saying is that we all make mistakes, and we need a way to see our mistakes in a reasonable and mature and professional manner. And I believe that having independent oversight is the way to do it. And it also is the way to build public trust. And we know that public trust is invaluable. So what I want to say is that if the citizens don't feel as if the review board is representing their needs and their point of view, how can they have confidence in the police? And how can the police feel confident going out on the streets if they don't have the confidence of the citizens? Thank you.
Thank you. Cecile Vallard, followed by Sean Dudley, followed by Mary Frances Prevost.
Thank you. My name is Cecile, and I'm a member of the San Diego Socialist Campaign. We're a coalition of activists who are going to be working to elect a socialist to the San Diego City Council in the 2016 primary ballot. We're here to say that we support and we endorse all of the demands by Women of Occupy and the coalition that they formed for an accountable community review board. I think that this is actually a minimum that we can ask of the city to, as Women of Occupy have said, to build public trust in oversight of San Diego police. And we're obviously amidst a scandal currently in San Diego, and the people of San Diego don't trust the police, and they don't trust that the city is in a position to hold police accountable. I have with me 500 petitions that I'm not turning into the city council today, but I just wanted to bring them to show these petitions were signed in 2012 by residents of San Diego. These petitions were collected by the Justice for Victor Ortega Coalition with the help of Canvas for a Cause. They were signed by 500 community members who were very concerned, that Victor Ortega was shot while handcuffed by a San Diego police officer, and John McCarthy, and this has never been investigated by the San Diego police, by the Community Review Board, the Citizens Review Board, or anyone else who ought to be holding the police accountable. I think, I have these petition signatures, but we ultimately, Justice for Victor Ortega Coalition ultimately decided not to turn them in to the Citizens Review Board because we felt that they didn't have the power to do anything with these petitions. So what we're asking today is that San Diego, give the opportunity, the City Council give the opportunity to San Diego voters to actually amend the charter so that we can have an accountable community review board, with the power to actually do something with, if we were to turn in 500 petitions like this, the people of San Diego have a right to know that something is going to be done about it. I spoke with Shekinah Ortega, who's the widow of Victor Ortega, today, and my time is up, but she specifically asked me to ask City Council, when is Bonnie Jimenez going to investigate this case? I think the answer is when she's going to be forced to, and that's why we need an accountable community review board. Thank you.
Sean Dudley, followed by Mary Frances Prevost, followed by Maxine Sherrard.
Hello again. I am for the amendment change in the charter. Let me just preface this by saying I'm part of a neighborhood watch group. I live in a high crime area called Lincoln Park. The gangs there have drive-by shootings about every month, and they kill somebody. And let me tell you, I've run into a lot of good policemen. I'm probably going to be the only person here tonight to say I've met incredible police. And without them, we're going to have total anarchy in our particular neighborhood. So I back the police. However, I have had a bad experience, and at one point I did file a police complaint to Internal Affairs. What happened was, after a few months, it was simply called an administrative review. Therefore, there was no public record. I was never called to testify. Nobody would ever know that anything happened. I submitted documentation, photographs, and so forth. They all are gone. There's nobody who will ever know what I complained about. I believe the review board that currently exists is essentially a rubber stamp, and I think they are on the side of the police almost to a fault. I think they need subpoena powers to ask for police to come in to be interviewed, to get documentation, to get photographs, especially considering that we have now police video cams. Now, I've read stories about other cities in which if someone is shot, suddenly those video camera tapes are erased. And we need to keep checks and balances. We have to have teeth. We have to be able to call them in and talk to them and find out what's going on. And right now, from my own personal experience, I don't believe that's occurring. So I'm very much for this. The subpoena powers, the ability to call in for interviews, and I hope that we can change that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Frances Prevost, followed by Maxine Sherrard, followed by Virgil Popescu.
Good evening. I am a member of the National Lawyers Guild. I am a member of the National Police Accountability Project, and I've been an attorney in San Diego for 23 years. My clients are part of the $7 million that you paid out to victims of police abuse here in San Diego. I represented Dante Harrell and Shannon Robinson against San Diego City and Officer Ariel Savage in his false arrest and brutal attack of them. I handed that case over to Gene Iredale and Julia Yu, and you granted them for $150,000. I represented Javier Cota against the San Diego police officer Ariel Savage again and Justin Matley just last week, or actually just last month, and a jury of 8 independent jurors determined that they were liable for false arrest. We have post-trial motions. You'll be hearing in the news whatever that case is worth down the line. I represented Jane Rowe, one of the Arevalos victims. She was put in the back of a police car, and she had a bag tied around her head, and it was duct taped around her neck. He took her underneath a bridge, and he fist raped her. You paid her $795,000. What do all of these cases have in common? There's no oversight. There is no transparency. I've been doing this for 23 years. I have never once in the 23 years had the San Diego Police Department come back and say, our cop did it. And we know that Ariel Savage did it. We know he did it twice within 8 months. Here's the problem. San Diego Internal Affairs, his supervisor exonerated him twice. That was 4 years ago. 2 weeks ago, he showed up in court to back his cop up one more time. And he got up there in lockstep with each of them. I'm sorry, but may I have 30 seconds? Thank you. He got up there in lockstep, and they all got up there and they lied. And they're still out there on the street. The Citizens Review Board has had internal affairs breathing down their necks, and they have been counseled by city attorneys. Problem here is that we had a city attorney that didn't put their city attorneys on there to brutalize the victims, and we had a DA who would actually prosecute cops. We wouldn't be here. But we don't have that. We are in a corrupt society. A new board that follows the county board would not cost you money. Each council person could appoint people. It would be the first step to transparency that I would have seen in San Diego in 23 years practicing here, and I hope that you support it. Thank you.
Maxine Sherrard, followed by Virgil Popescu, followed by Tasha Williamson.
I think everything was said by the young lady who talked before. But to members of the Charter Review Committee, my name is Maxine Sherrard. And I'm here today because I have experienced firsthand assault by San Diego police. I'm here today. And I feel that I've started an organization called SCRAP, which stands for Senior Citizens for Accountable Responsible Policing. My case is in federal court. I did not get an invitation to go before the review board and would not have, because I lack trust in the Citizen Review Board. I won't tell you very much about my case, but I was arrested in my own yard for trespassing and handcuffed and cited for resisting arrest. I tried to do a good deed for someone, and police, many of them are not educated and informed enough to know how to handle cases, and they mishandle mine. But sadly, too sadly, is that they tried to lie themselves out of the situation. 5 of the officers, including the sergeant, lied for each other. False reporting, all of those kinds of things happened in my case. I'm here to say, yes, I support a change in the board. We need an oversight board that is independent, transparent, and effective. Thank you.
Virgil Popescu, followed by Tasha Williamson, followed by Rafael Bautista. Please come forward when your name is called. There are seats in the front for speakers.
Good evening. My name is Virgil Popescu, and I'm a native of Romania. I came from there 42 years ago as a political refugee. I lived a peaceful life. I had no problems with the law until the year of 2005, when I became involved in a political and religious activity to support the Mount Soledad Cross. I had t-shirts, bumper stickers on a car, signs on a living, and suddenly I was harassed by 2 police officers, giving me all kind of false parking tickets because of my activity. One of them even assaulted me physically, dislocated my shoulder, and put a gun to my head. Charges to the internal affairs got nowhere. I filed a lawsuit in the federal court, and I was preparing my case for trial. And I was investigating them as to their political and religious activity. On September 17, 2007, in the morning, a SWAT team of 30 cops showed up, evacuated 2 blocks, and got me arrested on 2 charges. I'm stalking those 2 cops who were extremely violent to me. At the preliminary hearing, the charge against the police officer James Hunter, who put a gun to my head, was dismissed because you were such a pathological liar, even the judge was laughing. On a second charge, the deputy district attorney, David Williams, presented false witnesses, false documents, and resulted in the jury finding me guilty. And they sent me to prison. And unfortunately, the legal process is moving slowly. And I spent in prison 3 years and a half of my life, and before that I didn't have a traffic ticket, I didn't have a car accident.
Sir, do you need additional time?
Another 2 minutes.
Well, I can give you 1 minute.
Okay. So anyway, the appeal court reversed the second conviction of stalking. I was exonerated. I came back. I wanted to file a lawsuit against them. 3 attorneys advised me to forget about and live in hiding, because these cops are going to follow me, pull me on the side of the road, and shoot me on the back of my head, saying that I made a suspicious move and they fear for their lives. So that's a true story which could be verified from the court records. And my opinion is the names changed in the city office or in the police department, but the corruption, the violence, and the incompetence is getting worse. Thank you.
Tasha Williamson, followed by Rafael Bautista.
Hi, and thank you. My name is Tasha Williamson. I'm the co-founder of San Diego Compassion Project. We actually arrived to the homicides that happened in the city, primarily in Districts 4, 8, and 9, and also the violent injury incidents that occur. There is not one shooting a month in Lincoln Park, in which many of us reside. However, there are gang activity, and that gang activity is across the board, primarily in certain districts
of 4, 8, and 9, but they also are in other districts as well. One of the things that I wanted to say is that I do support transparency, but on June 3rd, I spoke before the county supervisors for the citizens because I'm also a community advocate. And we gave them, as we will give you, 30 days. We gave them 30 days before we and those citizens who have had willful intent to harm in many of the systematic failures to proceed with class action lawsuits. We do not live in a one San Diego. We are not living well in a live well San Diego. And we are tired. So there is a 30-day notice that there will be community action. There will be people in the streets. There will be class action lawsuits if change does not happen within 30 days. And we will be on national networks. We are tired of the non-transparency. We are tired of the systematic failures. And gang members, people on probation and parole, are especially tired of the failures and the lack of opportunities for them. And I support those individuals, and I will support those rallies, and I will support the things that they do with class action lawsuits to prevent the traumas that continue throughout this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Rafael Bautista.
Good evening. My name is Rafael Bautista. I'm also a member of the San Diego Socialist Campaign. And the reason why we are running a campaign is to promote this type of citizen participation to improve our current decisions and policy-making body. So I'm actually here. I grew up in City Heights. I also grew up in Encanto, and it's been the same treatment by police everywhere I go. I've been harassed multiple times. I've been harassed at the beach with my daughter, where I was threatened to be arrested while my 6-month-old was on my lap, sitting at the beach, while the police officer put her hands on me and my daughter without provocation and without any good reason. And this speaks volumes to what happened and what continues to happen in the violation of the citizens' rights, in particular citizens of color and non-citizens of color, non-citizens of color who happen to pay taxes. So we need a review board that's able to actually make impact for the people that are most persecuted. The fact that we can look at ourselves in the mirror and say, oh, it's just another cop killing. It's no longer enough. We can't say, oh, it's just another cop killing and try to justify it by crucifying the victim. We need to recognize the inherent inequalities in this system, the political system, the economic system, the oppressionary system of the police. And if we don't do anything about it, it's going to continue to worsen for the citizens, worsen for the working people. Can I get 30 more seconds?
You can have 30 seconds.
Thank you. So my case is actually currently in the Citizens Review Board. It's been there for 6 months. It was looked at by Internal Affairs. I have videos of this, and I provided videos, and it's being looked at by the Citizens Review Board. And as of now, it's been 2 months. They still have no response. They told me it's going to be a few more months before they have a response. And when I asked them how the process worked, they failed to let me know exactly how the process worked. So I interviewed with Internal Affairs on several occasions. I provided them the videotapes that I have, and I asked them for the cops' badges, because that's the only way we're going to get real change in the police officers' behavior. If we start removing their badges, then they will start understanding that they can't violate our rights. And if I don't get a resolution by the Citizens Review Board, I will go to the streets to make sure that those cops can no longer oppress our people in our city. Thank you.
In addition, there were 2 other slips from individuals in favor with no need to speak, Richard Hilton and Mark Greenberg, and that concludes the public speakers on this item.
for the folks who came down today to testify. I note that Council Member Emerald would like to docket this matter at her committee, and if anything is appropriate, she would bring it back to us at a future date to get more specifics involved with this. But with that, Council Member Kate.
Thank you, Council President Leiter. Appreciate you forwarding those comments from Council President Pro Tem Emerald. And thank you everyone for coming down tonight to speak and to share your stories and kind of outline what you all are looking for from the community in terms of amendments to the review board. I did see Ms. Mosley in the audience. Is she still here? Okay. I had a couple of questions for her. I don't know if she's... Thank you. Can we wait for her? Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Ms.
Come
Mosley.
on up, ma'am. Ms. Mosley.
Good evening. I'm sorry I stepped out.
No problem at all. I just had a couple questions, and I know you when you came before this, the Budget Review Committee, to answer questions, kind of the process of what you're undergoing, and at that time you stated that you're currently going through a review of some of the practices of the review board, as well as going to be undertaking a strategic planning process with the board to potentially look at changes if necessary. Can you explain where you are in that process and a timeline, if you do have one?
I've been working closely with the police department, and as you know, there was a PERF report. We've been working closely with trying to get access to all of the CRB complaints that's coming in, because that wasn't done before, through the SharePoint system. I guess the IT department right now is approving that, so that's one step. And also, as far as transparency, I'm hearing a lot about transparency here and in the city of San Diego, and I've been trying to meet up with internal affairs and trying to make the website more transparent. When the board investigates complaints and when they review the complaints are reviewed in closed session. And it's done that way because of the California's POBAR legal restrictions. So I know CLERB puts information out as far as complaints go. We just want to try to work under the guidelines that make sure that the officer's information is still protected, but also to make sure that the community, whoever files complaints, knows what's happening with their complaints and the rationale that went behind the decision in the board's findings. So I think the board works very diligently. They put a lot of time into reviewing complaints. People don't see that because, the process is a closed process. And what else? I'm trying to think.
Well, in terms, I guess, kind of to filter along, in terms of the strategic planning process, I think you mentioned that beforehand. Is there an intent upon members of the board to look back at their charge, look at their powers, look at what's provided to them via our municipal code and the ordinance that authorizes them about ways to either strengthen the process from a transparency standpoint, working with the community standpoint? Do you expect that to occur during your process?
I think it will. I think right now the police department, they've been working trying to make the process more transparent. Then there's the body cameras that will address like those complaints, that's like he say, she say complaints, because the board will be able to review those videos. I think the problem now is what information can they give to the complainants, just to make sure that the community is aware of what is happening in the process. I think, I've been working close.
That's my time, don't worry about it.
Okay. Yes, I've been working closely with IA, and I also spoke to Brian Marvel when I first came here to see what sort of information we can get out there to the public.
And are you also, I know you come from Albany and involved there, is part of the process to also look at other best practices? Obviously the county's board has come up as part of a kind of the model of what to establish by. Are you also bringing with you knowledge of some other entities that you've worked with, other agencies and jurisdictions, and what potentially may come as recommendations moving forward?
Yes, I know CLERB has subpoena power. They have like 2 investigators. They haven't had to use their subpoena power. The CRB here, they actually work in teams. They go into IA, they get the entire case file. They spend hours, they spend a lot of time going through these case files. I think that previously there was a part-time executive director in the position, and now there's a full-time executive director. So I think more change, more things can be addressed, and more things can be done. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. And I hear Ferguson, but San Diego is not a Ferguson, thank God. I think that, there is a board that's in place because of the charter, and whatever the people of San Diego wants, that's what we have to work with.
The $1 million question is, do you have an idea of timing when you think you would be able to come? You mentioned Council President Pro Tem Emerald wants to docket this for a future discussion of public safety as well too. Do you have a timeline? Are you looking August, September, end of this year?
It could be by the end of this year. It could be August, September. I'm just thinking that, I'm slowly getting my bearings here in the city of San Diego. And, I think I've been getting great feedback from the police department, from IA's office. So I think everything looks positive as we move forward.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and just some brief comments, if you don't mind, Council President Leitner, and I appreciate Ms. Sullivan coming into my office, spend some time with me to discuss some of the intent. Met with Mr. Jones a number of times. I joked with him that he was actually the first person I talked to after I got sworn into office. And what I mentioned to Ms. Sullivan at the last meeting, and I slept long and hard on this and thought about it, and going back and reading the charter and also the municipal code that sets forth the purpose of intent and the duties and functions of the board. And my reading of the charter is it's very, very open-ended, and I think I've said this a number of times in this committee, is that my preference and where I come from at this is to be as permissive within the charter as possible and allow for the implementing ordinances to outline the details of what should be occurring. And if there is the need for change, I don't think we need a charter amendment to do it. It'd be a lot quicker as well too if we did it through ordinance, which is already established within the municipal code and what the duties and intents are, and we can go back as a council and make amendments to the duties and functions of the board while falling still within the purpose and intent of the review board as outlined in Charter Section 43, Section D. That's my reading of it. Madam City Attorney, I would imagine that when this is docketed at public safety, we can potentially have an additional review on the legalities of that. I remember Ms. Sullivan mentioning that there were lawsuits during the process when implementing the CLERB, and a lawsuit by the Deputy Sheriff's Association at that time. I would imagine any major changes to the board would have to would trigger a meet and confer process with our police officer association. But again, kind of just going back for my balancing the need, waiting for some feedback from Ms. Mosley and the board on potential changes and updates. If those were to occur, I don't think we need to wait to June to have them. We can do them through the municipal code, and my preference would be to wait until Ms. Emerald works with Ms. Mosley on potentially documents on the public safety to have that discussion. If amendments need to be made, we can propose them at that time and direct the city attorney to draft any amendments, if necessary, to the board for consideration by the council. So that's where I'm at on this. I'm happy to...
I do have some comments on this.
Perfect.
I'm glad that everyone did come down, and you are correct. The charter section itself is relatively open-ended. It does give all the discretion to the mayor, however, and it is not specified in the municipal code. It's done through the bylaws of the Citizens Review Board on Police Practices. I had the same difficulty, and Mr. Gard corrected me immediately, so it is something I think it would be great to have a motion to refer this to Marty's committee to look at the bylaws, make suggested recommendations with respect to those, and if they believe there need to be charter amendments to make sure this is correct, along with Ms. Mosley and the police department and the public, to come back to this committee if there's a need for charter changes, but also the bylaws, I believe, Mr. Monroy, are those strictly through the mayor's office at this point in time?
That's a good question, Council President Leitner. I'd have to look into that for you.
Get more information, because there's not a strict proposal right now.
I'm happy to make the motion to refer to the committee. I guess my question would be, though...
work everything out.
Yeah, thank you. Just wave our magic wand. I guess my question, Ms. Dugard, I guess, I would ask to probably include language in the motion to direct the city attorney to look at this. I guess I'm struggling with why, as a council, if changes would be necessary, we couldn't do them within the ordinance and not have it done through the bylaws.
That ordinance doesn't apply to the Citizens Review Board. It's a different entity. Do you want to hear that from the city attorney?
I would love
heard it from the city attorney.
Then.
Yes, the board that the Citizens Advisory Committee that is in the municipal code is a separate body that is appointed by the city council and addresses police community relations to the mayor and the council, whereas the Citizens Review Board on Police Practices is specifically delineated in the charter, appointed by the mayor, and the guidelines for their activities are from the mayor's office, and their focus is the disciplinary actions and the complaints, which is a different focus than general police community relations. Easy to see, though, the confusion and the potential overlap between those two bodies.
So maybe we want to have Ms. Emerald's committee look at these entities and resolve and make sure that we're getting what we really want here.
Yeah, I would also ask as well, too, that I tried to go back and look through online some of the backup materials from 1989 and legislative intent on the ordinance, because this was adopted immediately. This ordinance was adopted immediately after the election at that time. So maybe our city clerk has a lot of documents that we can go through in the archives and find how what some legislative intent was at that time versus.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer this item, this topic, to the Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods Committee with direction to include the participation, I would say, of the mayor's office. Is that acceptable? Certainly Ms. Mosley would need to be involved, and mayor's office, the city attorney's office, definitely the committee consultant, any help we can offer going forward on this, given the two different types of things. Okay, Mr. Monroy, are you okay, or do you have comments?
Absolutely. I think probably at this point, based on the conversation this evening, it would be most appropriate to move it to PSNL at this point.
Who seconded it? Okay, great. motion, a second. All in favor? Please vote. You can vote. Sorry, the chair can't work the machine here. So with that, please call a roll. That motion carries unanimously with Council President Pro Tem Emerald absent, and thank you. With that, we will move on to item 5, which is the open mic session of this evening. We do have, this is public comment and suggestions regarding any other